Welcome, deep divers. So glad you're joining us today for what I think is going to be a really eye-opening deep dive. We're looking at something that honestly has the potential to reshape how the entire world does business. That's right. We're talking about the official release, just a few days back, of the TWIN system white paper. TWIN, that's the Trade Worldwide Information Network. And reading through it, the scope just really surprised me. It's much bigger than just tweaking supply chains. It feels like a total rethink.
Oh, absolutely. It is genuinely transformative. The white paper basically positions TWIN as the future global standard for handling cross-border trade. And get this, we're talking about managing over $33 trillion in trade annually. That number alone, it's just staggering. The ambition is huge.
And here's something really critical, especially if you're following distributed ledger tech. TWIN isn't just using DLT, it is built from the ground up entirely on IOTA. The white paper is crystal clear, IOTA is fundamental. It's what enables this whole new level of trust and efficiency. It's the backbone. So our mission for this deep dive, we want to unpack what really makes TWIN revolutionary. We'll explore its superpowers, as the summary calls them, and crucially, why this should matter to you, whether you're deep in logistics, making policy, or just curious about where global commerce is heading. Okay, so let's unpack this properly. Before we get into TWIN's solutions, we really need to get our heads around the problems. Why are global value chains so complex and, frankly, inefficient?
Well, the complexity is just immense. You've got so many different players involved. Public sector, private sector, suppliers, manufacturers, customs, shippers, all operating under different rules in different countries. And the sheer volume of documents, invoices, declarations, certificates, compliance forms, plus all the business data, it's astronomical and often completely incompatible. The white paper does a great job laying out the core technical hurdles. First, just basic interoperability, or the lack of it. No standard systems, no common language. Then you've got legacy system integration, trying to connect old systems across borders. It's hugely expensive, super time-consuming, there's no common framework. Data sovereignty is another big one. Businesses worry, quite rightly, about leaks, about compliance, when they share sensitive data. Plus, for smaller businesses, limited resources and the sheer complexity are major barriers. SMEs, micro, small, medium enterprises, they struggle with the IT and navigating all the rules. And let's not forget vendor lock-in. You get tied into one provider system, and switching is a nightmare because everything's custom built. And layered over all of that, the constant risk around security and compliance. Data breaches, fines, it's a minefield.
Wow, okay, it sounds like a real digital labyrinth, like everyone's shouting in a different language. We have seen attempts to fix this before, haven't we? I'm thinking of TradeLens, the IBM and Maersk thing that didn't quite pan out as hoped. So given that history, what makes TWIN's approach, this decentralized, distributed, federated model, genuinely different? Why might it succeed? What's the key shift?
That's the million-dollar question, maybe the $33 trillion question. The fundamental difference is baked into TWIN's design principles, leveraging decentralization from the start. Unlike a centralized platform, there's no single point of failure, no central data hoard. That immediately makes it less attractive for cyber attacks. And crucially, it lets the network benefit from real network effects. The more participants, the exponentially greater the value for everyone. And central to making that work is identity management. Every single actor gets their own immutable digital identity, a decentralized identifier, or DoD. This lets them interact directly, trustfully, without needing some central authority figure watching over everything. And this design also guarantees data verifiability and authenticity. You can actually check cryptographically where data came from and that it hasn't been messed with. Underpinning all that are the core principles: traceability, immutability, and transparency. These are absolutely vital for smooth collaboration, for resolving disputes quickly, cutting through all that red tape. And what's really cool is how it pulls this off. It leans heavily on those decentralized identifiers, DIDs we just talked about, and also on verifiable credentials, VCs. Think of VCs like digital tamper-proof badges for almost anything: identity, certifications, compliance status. Plus, there's this sophisticated auditable data model. It uses something called an auditable item graph and auditable item streams. Now that sounds technical, but picture the item graph as like a complete family tree for a product, tracking every component, every step from raw material onwards. And the item streams are like a running, verified log of everything that happens to that product recorded on the ledger. It makes faking a product's history basically impossible. Everything's traceable, cryptographically verifiable.
Okay, and that really loops us back powerfully to IOTA, doesn't it? The white paper specifically says this whole structure lets TWIN anchor data onto a public DLT like IOTA. That provides the bedrock, that undeniable layer of trust, integrity, transparency. It even calls out the IOTA DLT connector specifically as key for trust and data verification. It really does seem foundational. Right, so we've got the principles. Now let's get practical. Let's talk about these superpowers, the features that make this real for businesses on the ground.
Absolutely. Let's break them down. Superpower number 1, open and trustworthy. Basically, TWIN uses digital certificates, cryptographic signing, so you always know who created a document, and you know it hasn't been tampered with since, or at least not without leaving a clear trace. So the example given is a shipping company. Before using TWIN, they register, get their digital certificate. Then when they send, say, a cargo manifest, it's digitally signed and stored, everyone knows who sent it, and it's tamper evident. And that core trust, it relies directly on IOTA's immutable auditable ledger. That guarantees the data integrity right from the start.
Okay, that makes sense. An ironclad audit trail. But what about flexibility? Companies already have systems. How does this avoid being another huge integration headache?
Good question. That leads perfectly into the second superpower. TWIN is built like Lego. It's modular and extensible. It works through these components, TWIN nodes, TWIN data apps. You can add or remove them as you need. It's designed to complement existing systems, not force or rip and replace. This directly attacks that vendor lock-in issue we mentioned. So, picture a logistics firm. Maybe they only need container tracking and document handling to start. They just install those modules on their TWIN node. Simple. Then, down the line, if they need billing integrated, they just add the billing module. No massive overhaul needed.
That modularity sounds really appealing, especially for smaller players. But okay, trust between parties. How does that work without a central middleman? That's tripped up others before.
Exactly. Which brings us neatly to superpower number 3, trust without a central boss. This is where those DIDs and VCs really come into their own. They let parties check each other out directly on the network. So a port needs proof a transporter has, say, a safety cert or a good track record. The transporter shares their verifiable credential, maybe issued by a recognized body, and the port verifies it instantly, right there on the network. No central check needed. Trust is decentralized, and IOTA's role here, it acts as the verifiable data registry for these DIDs and for lists of revoked credentials. That's absolutely critical for this decentralized trust to actually work at scale.
That's a fundamental shift. Okay, so if they can trust each other directly, what about the data itself? The different formats, the standards problem?
Yes, the Tower of Babel problem in trade data. That's superpower number 4. TWIN speaks many languages. It handles interoperability seamlessly. Think of TWIN as a kind of universal translator for data standards. So maybe a factory uses the GS1 standard to send data, but their customer overseas uses EPCIS 2.0. TWIN takes the GS1 data. Internally, it uses a kind of neutral common dictionary. The white paper calls them standardized JSON LD vocabularies. This lets a component called the TWIN adapter translate and reformat the data perfectly into EPCIS 2.0 for the recipient. The beauty is, neither the factory nor the client has to change their own internal systems. TWIN handles the translation.
That is incredibly practical. Okay, great concept, great tech. But is it real? How much is theory versus actual proven results?
Right, which takes us to superpower number 5. TWIN is proven in the real world. This isn't just ideas on paper. TWIN's been put through its paces in real-world pilots, and it's delivering tangible benefits already. There was a pilot in Kenya, the TLIP, Project Trade Logistics Information Pipeline. The results were quite striking. Customs clearance usually took about 5 days. With TWIN automatically sharing certified documents securely, they cut that down to just 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah, and with fewer manual errors, less chance for things to go wrong. It's also been tested in the UK's border trade demonstrators. It works. It delivers.
Going from 5 days to 2, that's not just incremental, that's a game changer for efficiency. Okay, last superpower. Who's actually steering this ship? With something so decentralized, how is it governed? How do you keep it open and fair?
Good point. That's the 6th superpower. TWIN is governed by a collaborative foundation. It's not run by a single company. The TWIN Foundation is this collaboration of major global players. You've got the IOTA Foundation, the World Economic Forum, Trademark Africa, the UK's Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade, the Tony Blair Institute, the Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation. It's a serious group.
Quite a roster.
Right. So if they need a new standard, say for security, the members propose it, they discuss, they vote, reach consensus, and then update the protocol together. This ensures consistency, fairness, everyone has buy-in. It avoids that single point of control problem. And the foundation officially launched back in May 2025, showing real commitment and momentum. And if we zoom out a bit, connect this to the bigger picture. WIN enables some truly disruptive things beyond just faster customs. Think about document tokenization, turning things like bills of lading, invoices into NFTs on the IOTA ledger. The real kicker there isn't just faster payments, so that's good. It's the potential for liquid, securitized trade finance, turning those documents into tradable assets that could unlock massive capital, especially for smaller businesses globally. It's also huge for sustainability and compliance. You hear about digital product passports, the EU deforestation rules. WIN provides that traceable, verifiable proof all along the supply chain, makes compliance much easier, much more transparent. This obviously boosts supply chain visibility massively, and really importantly, it helps democratize access. By lowering the costs of digital infrastructure, it gives micro, small, and medium businesses, especially in lower-income countries, a real shot at participating effectively in global trade.
So pulling it all together, what this really means for you, for everyone, is that TOYOAN is aiming to build essentially an internet of supply chains. A world where the data is trustworthy by default, where everyone interacts as equals, and where systems can talk to each other without anyone losing control over their own information. It's a huge leap from the fragmented, often murky systems we have now.
And just to really hammer it home, IOTA's role is absolutely pivotal in all this. It's not just a technology in the mix. IOTA is the foundational DLT backbone. It's what makes the promises of decentralized trust, of immutability, of efficient data sharing in TOYOAN actually possible. TOYOAN leverages IoT's transparency, immutability, traceability, non-repudiation, and smart contract features. It uses the whole toolkit to build this new trade paradigm.
It really does feel like a paradigm shift, moving away from those siloed, centralized, often bureaucratic ways of the past towards this open, decentralized, super efficient global trade network. And IoT is right there at the core. And bringing you these kinds of insights, these aha moments, that's exactly what we aim for here on the Deep Dive.
So let me leave you with a final thought to chew on. Imagine a world where every single item moving across borders, from raw materials deep in the earth to the finished product in your hand, has its own transparent, verifiable, instantly accessible digital twin living on a public ledger. Imagine the friction that disappears, the errors that vanish, the way global commerce transforms. What entirely new possibilities, what innovations, what kinds of businesses might that unlock for everyone worldwide?